Your first few years, 2-3 years of being a more authentic, purpose-driven entrepreneur are definitely challenging. You're still new to the game. The algorithms constantly change. You rely a lot more on free traffic on social media than paid traffic. And I've been in the trenches. This is my 5th year running an online business. And I started out as an English fluency and confidence coach. And I had my own struggles and difficulties that kept me stuck, kept me spending a lot more time creating content, constantly checking my funnels, modifying it, automatizing it, but I wasn't focusing on what actually helped me converting a lot more clients and then make a bigger impact with my business, which was how I can naturally magnetize people, get closer to my brand, get closer to the point when they invest in my services, whether it was my community, my one-to-one coaching, because I wasn't understanding what messaging was all about. So let's jump in and see the number one mistake I see a lot of purpose-driven, heart-centered mentors, coaches, and healers make that hold them back from actually making a real impact and then creating that natural influx of consistent client inquiries that help them build that sustainable business. One of the biggest ones is this question of like the niche, right? Everyone talks about this. Should I niche down? I shouldn't niche down. I should not care about niches. But the truth about the niches, at least the way I teach them in my communities, is that your niche is ultimately who you're speaking to, that specific identity, which I'm going to ask you, have you got clear on that? Like, how clear are you on the specific identity that you're speaking to when it comes to creating content, when it comes to creating a funnel, a messaging ecosystem that allows them to make it easy for them to make the next decision? That's what messaging is about. Plus, a niche is ultimately about solving problems, which is what I think a lot of heart-centered coaches who define themselves as heart-centered don't even realize. They think my niche is being a hypnotherapist, my niche is being a gene keys specialist or human design or somatic coaching, when that is more like a vehicle, and I'm going to talk about this in a future video. And I know I've been promising this, so probably that's going to be my next video coming up. But what is a specific problem that people have that vehicle or collection of vehicles, a framework that you could potentially create, could help people solve? Because the only way you're going to be able to catch people where they are at, which I'm sure is like your number one question. How do I catch people where they are at? How do I speak to them? How do I get them closer to buying? How do I get their attention? And then help them see how my program is the best, the most essential, most important for them to take. And it's ultimately going to be coming down to understanding how people think. The coaches, and I'm always going to talk about this because this is something a lot of people make a mistake about, who are able to build that sustainable business that gets consistent client inquiries, that help them build that business that doesn't consume up the majority of their time, that doesn't keep them at the desk creating content on Canva every single day, recording videos every single day, is always going to be the one who understands how people think, how they make decisions, and how to help them remove everything that prevents the purchase and also build a demand for that offer, which is what we focus a lot on when it comes to messaging. So think about what are these specific problems. I'm going to talk about this in point number 2. So think about what's specific, and I'm going to talk about this in mistake number 2, because I'm willing to bet you're not being specific about your messaging, not specific about the type of person you're speaking to or their current world, their current situation. So they are not going to be able to relate to your content. So whenever I get a new one-to-one client or someone joins us in our messaging membership, the first thing we always check is, okay, what specific problems you're helping people solve, because running a business comes down to solving specific problems. There's way more than we can talk about when it comes to messaging, when it comes to making people feel like this is our number one goal with messaging with my clients. That when a new person arrives at one of our content, it makes them binge watch the rest of it and then make them feel like this is speaking to me. I feel like home. I want to work with this coach because I know he has the solution to my problem. So always get clear on at least the top 5 to 10 specific problems, issues, misbeliefs, limiting beliefs that your ideal client currently has, how they experience this problem, so that you're able to speak to them, create content around those problems that get their attention. If you're not speaking to specific problems, no matter what you do, you're going to lose them to the coach, the mentor, who's able to speak to them so directly and specifically about the problems that they are experiencing that they will go and work with them because that coach is able to catch them where they are at. The second problem, and this is something that I used to make for a very long time, my fear of messing it up in my messaging, my fear of not being able to help everyone, because I thought I'm gonna be the savior, I'm gonna be the one that changes the world and the way the world operates and the world learns languages, because I was an English language coach. But because I was way too generic, I wasn't very clear on exactly who I'm speaking to in my content. I wasn't even clear on what we talk a lot about with my clients, speaking to the type of person who is not in their victim mentality, is constantly complaining about what they haven't achieved yet. They feel a lot of shame around things because those people, they love staying in their shit. If you're making your entire messaging, marketing, and sales mechanisms about helping people get out of the shit that they themselves don't want to get out of, you're wasting not just time, online real estate, but also your energy trying to help people who don't want your help. So when it comes to specificity, I want you to take the time and think about, and you're gonna find a 2-page helpful worksheet that's going to help you collect your ideas, come up with a bunch of things. There is no sign up needed. I'm not going to gatekeep that. That's all for you, so you can get clear on this, because I really want more coaches to be specific, to create their own soul tribes, specifically describing, talking to that specific person that they want to help. But I know what that limiting thought might come from the fact that if I'm speaking too specifically, I might lose more people. But when I'm speaking specifically in my content, and if you feel like the way I'm speaking, the way I'm describing your experience, your beliefs is specific, this is proof that it's working. But I'm not just speaking to everyone, I'm speaking to the type of coach, the type of mentor who truly wants to make a big impact in the world. They don't just want to do their business for money. I speak to the type of coach who says, I'm gonna just show up, being myself, share with people what I believe is gonna help them achieve something, not looking around at what everybody else is doing in my space, because I know that my teaching, that my downloads are going to be the most beneficial to them if I don't let it corrupt my own messaging. And the type of coach that knows that we need to keep testing, experimenting, keep trying, so that we see what resonates with the right people. And it's not just gonna come so easily and quickly by simply winging it, especially not understanding how our ideal clients operate. Even when I started being a lot more specific and I chose the type of English learner who was more like an entrepreneur or professional who really needed to speak English more professionally, more accurately, they didn't just want to randomly learn to speak a second language. The mistake I was making was that I assumed that people already have the foundation knowledge that they need so they can invest in my services. But we live in days when people are incredibly confused. There's a lot of BS out there, and you know that as well, I'm sure, in your own industry. There's a lot of people who spread all kinds of lies. They post all kinds of bullshit just to get people's attention. They are fear-mongering with their hooks, and they just share flat out bullshit about a bunch of things that make your ideal client even more confused about things. So one of the things that we do with my clients is that we ultimately go deeper, we go beyond just sharing how-tos and talking about strategies, frameworks, because honestly, if people have access to that, because they have those unconscious wirings, those subconscious beliefs about why they can't do it, why there is another way to do it, why someone else is doing it in a different way, you are not going to be able to convert them. When we switch to more belief shifting, perspective shifting content and really speak to how what they are currently experiencing, whether it's a mistake, a problem they have, a situation, or how they speak to themselves, and then explain to them how the root cause of all of that is that they have a belief that they never took off the autopilot, and show them that that's just a belief through persuasive frameworks. There's a bunch of frameworks for that. There's a whole methodology for belief shifting that follows the way people make decisions in Impact My Messaging membership. And when people realize that what was holding them back was actually the belief that something was not working in a certain way because they expected that to happen, simply just believing what society tells them about themselves or what a guru tells them, or because they just never questioned why they do certain things the way they do, conversion becomes a lot easier because they don't have that resistance anymore. You are able to eliminate most of the objections, most of the doubts, insecurities, because your content is centered around helping people see how it's their beliefs that hold them back, which show up as truth for them until your messaging shows them that those are just beliefs. It kind of ties into mistake 4, which is one of the reasons I became a messaging coach, and I really leaned into my communication skills that I picked up by learning languages, by focusing on communication skills. And it's the fact that you might be winging it. You might be thinking you just have to be authentic, and that's what a lot of people tell you, but then you're not thinking about how the audience, your ideal client, is making decisions about whether they should sign up to your webinar and spend time and energy investing in it. Even watching a video, keep on watching a video. And the risk that disconnected creators take by not paying attention to how people make decisions, which is something we don't have control over if we just wing it and don't understand how to communicate in a way that gives people incentives. Why am I listening to you? Why should I be spending the next 2-3 minutes watching your reel, your TikTok video? Why should I be spending the next 5 minutes reading your newsletter? So providing people with the why, what's the benefit for them to focus on what you're about to share with them, the consequences of not applying what you're about to share with them, what impact it has on their lives, the benefits they're gonna get from that information. This is something a lot of disconnected creators might consciously know, but they don't apply it in, let's say, the first 10-15% of their copy in their emails, all kinds of captions, or in their videos. And that also includes understanding your ideal client well enough to know what stage are they at when it comes to their awareness, when they have a specific problem that you want to help them with. What is something they know? What are their assumptions? What are things that they don't know? What are things that they don't know that they don't know? That's the type of content we want to use for belief shifting among my students. And speaking to that segment of the audience that cares about what do I need to know, and not immediately jumping into how to solve a specific problem, which is something they care less about, especially if they are willing to invest in your program. They want to know is how it can help them, how your offer, how your vehicle, how your coaching applies to their problems, the problems that they experience. You still want to speak to the how, then that's what comes after. So first you talk about the why, which is what most of your audience is going to be interested in. That's how you pull them in. You focus on what is important for them to know, maybe things that they didn't know before. That comes down to you being an expert and understanding how to communicate to your audience, to people who have a lower level of awareness, or they still have that problem and they look at that problem in their own model of reality. And then the third section is when you can start talking about the how it applies to them. How is it easy for them to take the first step? That's when we start building that self-efficacy that is necessary, that belief that, well, I could do this. This sounds simple. This sounds doable. This sounds like something that this coach has helped other people with, or they know what they talk about. They know their shit. And then we can talk about the what if, talking about the consequences of what if they do it, what if it works, and what if it doesn't work. So focusing on speaking in the order of how people make decisions, how they decide whether they keep watching, they keep consuming your content, is ultimately what's going to help you catch and then hold the right people's attention until there's a point when you invite them to sign up for your coaching. Yeah, an application form, download a freebie, or perhaps this is something we started focusing on with my students, buy your low ticket offer that gets them into your world, gives them a taste of what it feels like to be working with you. And the last one, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't talk about or they don't realize, and something as a perfectionist I used to struggle with a lot, is the fact that you won't know until you experiment, test, tweak, and reiterate. And the reason why in any program I create about messaging, there's always a support around helping people overcome this fear of failure, fear of being seen, and fear of judgment, which is simply a subconscious belief we just repeated enough for us to believe that there's something wrong with us when we make mistakes, there's something wrong with us when we get a hate comment by someone who probably we wouldn't be changing places with. So my students are able to put things out there faster, test things faster. They understand some of the processes I teach in my program, so they know what to test, they know what to focus on, so their messaging becomes a lot more aligned and it attracts the right kind of people, makes it easier for them to purchase, to reach out, to inquire, to take the next step, which is why we want to build that messaging ecosystem that calls in, invites, and then charges and then serves the people we call soul clients in our space. And if you feel like you've tried something, like you tried a title and it didn't work, that doesn't mean anything. You still get to talk about that topic, but you might need to use a different title because that title either wasn't structured enough to attract the right kind of people, or it just wasn't compelling enough for people to keep watching. If you use an analogy or try to explain something in a certain way and that doesn't work, that doesn't resonate or doesn't resonate with as many people, what my students do is that they come up with another analogy and then they keep testing which ways of me talking about the problem resonates more with the right people, gets the clicks, gets the signups, gets people to complete the application form. What titles do I use? What frameworks do I use that help my students get one step closer to investing? If you're not testing, if you're not experimenting, you're just winging it, again, you are not going to be able to see what works. And if you know anything about running a business, especially making it sustainable, it's all about knowing your numbers, knowing your conversion numbers, knowing how many people clicked, how many people signed up, how many people applied, and out of those people, how many people your messaging was able to convert. Missing out on this because you're too scared of taking that next step, you're too scared of thinking, you already assume whether it's gonna work or not because you think something is valuable instead of testing and seeing how that resonates with your audience, you are going to find it really hard to be able to be relatable and use your messaging to actually convert people because, again, you don't know what to double down on if you don't measure, you don't check what's working and what's not working in your messaging. Let me know in the comment section which of these 5 mistakes you recognize yourself in, and if there's anything else you want me to talk about, you want me to expand on one of the mistakes in a future video. I'm always here to serve, help you. You can even send me an email about some of the things that you found relatable in this video, and can't wait to see you in another video.